And I'd say my first Olympics, 96, we went to South Africa for probably about 4 months. So right during that apartheid era, it was so cool, but we didn't qualify, like we were a team away. And after that, definitely went into a depression. My whole identity was foreclosed on being this Olympian because I'd had this dream. Another mentor, Cal Botterill, he'd always kind of said, like, if you're not enough without a gold medal, you're never going to be enough with it.
Welcome to the Calgary Sessions. This is episode number 167. I'm your host, Jeff Humphreys. Before I get into it, I've been asking this for like a couple months. Share the damn show if you like it, and also review it, like write some words against it. Today's guest, we kind of talked about this off camera. Usually I do like a little like random spiel, how this came to be. I was on LinkedIn, cruising around. I'm like, I wonder who's out there. And all of a sudden, she posts something and it caught my attention. So I send a random DM, and here we are. So name and who you are.
Awesome, thanks. Dr. Karen MacNeill, and first and foremost, I'm a mother of a spunky 12-year-old, a weekend warrior, love to get out, and in my day job, performance psychologist and mental performance consultant, where I really have a passion for helping others unlock their full potential.
And I have no idea what you posted, guys. I have no memory, but it was something along those lines. And what's interesting about the show is I just get into these random conversations about whether it's mental fitness, whether it's just their approach of how they accomplish things. And so whatever you posted struck a chord with me. I'm like, I got to see if she wants to be here. So
love it.
This will be a really cool one. Have you seen one of these?
I have, yes. Okay. Yeah, I always do a little snooping to see what am I getting myself into.
Who is this weirdo?
Yeah. So I listened to a couple this weekend, yep.
Awesome. Yeah, so I'd love to walk this thing back. Where you grew up, how you grew up, parents, siblings, school, work, athletics, and we'll just kind of like weave our way to where you are today. So
sure,
take as far back as you want to go.
Yeah. Where to begin? Born and raised Calgarian. And I was born to a family who has 4 children. 3 of us are adopted. And then my parents didn't think they could have kids, and then they did. Had my little brother about 4.5 years later. So I grew up in a household that was very eclectic. We definitely did the nature versus nurture experiment. We had one that was blonde hair, blue eyes, blonde hair, brown eyes, dark hair, blue eyes, dark hair, brown eyes. We all ate the same Cheerios, but couldn't be more different in terms of the humans that we are. And so I think in that household, my parents brought it all together just with a lot of strong values, taking care of others, the community, and we all kind of had our own little path in terms of what we did. I was definitely sporty spice. Sport was just high energy, as you'll get to know me on this podcast, and so it was a real outlet. And I think they put us all into sport at one point, but that was definitely something that was consistent for me growing up, which I live in that world today.
With that kind of like youth, and everyone just kind of did their own thing. Like, did everyone try sport? Like, did all your brothers and sisters, everyone tried it, and then just like, if you like something, your parents allowed you to keep going down that path? Yeah,
I think exactly that. And I think, it was kind of like when you have 4 children, you just throw them all. Except my younger brother was 4.5 years after us. Mm-hmm. We were all within 3 years of each other. So It was kind of like, okay, you're all playing soccer, you're all playing flag football, or whatever it may be. And my parents were really like they're really involved, whether it be golf or when the Olympics is on, we got to eat dinner in front of the television, right? So I think for me, that exposure, and right from a young age, I didn't know what sport, but I was going to be an Olympian, right?
No way.
So I remember it was I can't remember what games it was, but Mary Lou Retton, the gymnast from the U.S., and Ekaterina Szabo were in this epic battle for the individual all-around competition. And it all came down to Mary Lou's last vault. And what does she do? She scores a perfect freaking 10. Who does that? The best of the best. And so for me, I'm like, I want to do that. And so I went into the backyard and I did a handspring and sprained my wrist. And so it wasn't going to be gymnastics, but it lit a fire in my belly. And I think I just kind of tracked to I think it was being an Olympian when I think about it, or was it just being my best. And so I think that kind of carried on into my passion to what I do today.
You talked about the values that your parents was it like were you watching it and learning, or were they actually sitting you guys down and talking to you and talking about community and being a good person? Like, how'd you pick it up?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question. There wasn't any sitting down, even being adopted. It was, I got to kindergarten and we'd talk about, oh yeah, I'm adopted. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, you're not adopted? What do you mean? It was kind of like, we never were sat down. It was when we went to go pick you up, or we're going to get a TV, but we got you instead. And, so it's just very natural and normal. And I think in terms of observing, yeah, it wasn't definitely in terms of boundaries, because I kind of pushed some limits at times, as did my siblings. But it's how they lived. And it's just, with neighbors or, my dad got the Order of Canada for, kind of what he did in terms of work. He was the CEO of Enbridge at the end of the day. Started out modest accountant and worked his way up. But it's for kind of how he helped to build things, right? So I think seeing that and going to that ceremony, it's like, oh, I want to do something that would give me the opportunity to get into. It wasn't the award; it's the impact that you had. So I think through that modeling, it kind of is like, how can I be a difference maker?
Do you think that's unique to think like that? Like that impact piece? So when I think about, it's so funny. Well, I'll tell this random story. You might appreciate this. When I was 16, I was playing AAA hockey in town here. And one of the kids on the team, his dad was the coach of the Flames.
Okay.
Dave King.
Dave King. Oh.
And so
Scott King.
Yeah, Scott King.
Andy King was my roommate. So yeah, here we go.
All the stories I'm going to tell.
Yeah. It's great. It's great.
So Dave brings like 11, 12 of us down to the Dome to skate with like the injured Flames.
Amazing.
Gary Roberts, Santa McCarthy, like some of the heavies.
Yeah.
And so I had my buddy on this podcast. He's the second guest, Jackson Hagland, who's on the team with me. And we talked about this event. And my memory from this thing is like, I remember the locker room. I remember like having like shower stuff and shaving stuff and like aftershave and like that piece of it.
Yeah.
My buddy Jackson was watching Gary Roberts the entire time, watching him practice and all the nuances and like picking up all these things. My buddy Jackson went and played at Princeton, played pro in Japan.
Cool.
So he was looking at it through a different lens than I was, right? And that's why when you're talking about like the impact thing, when you're looking at these, whether it's gymnasts or your dad winning, and you're thinking impact, like what is that?
Well, once again, if I put my psychology hat on, I would say for me, it's about having significance. It's about, and really, the day I was born, I was given up to a family that loved me and took care of me, and I had a good life. But a belief system that was formed on that day was you are unwanted. Until I did a bunch of therapy, and now changed into you were chosen, right? And so that unwantedness or that feeling of needing to be chosen or needing to have impact, well, be careful. And you can either go two ways, I find, in the adoption literature. You either really test it. How about now? Do you love me now? What if I did this? Would you love me now? Or you overfunction. Yep. And I think like 4 degrees, 2 masters and a PhD, and being on the national team. And I think I went that route. If I really look at it, so did it come from that? Did it come from this is just what's innate to me? These are some of the curiosities, but I know, our thoughts will drive emotions, and our thoughts will drive our behaviors, right? So especially when, for the longest time before I was aware and did a bunch of therapy, it was all subconscious, right? So for me, it's like, yeah. So is it a part? Is it the selfishness about having significance? But it's also, for me, there's no better feeling than when I know I helped that individual rise to the challenge and bring their best on that day. And part of that is the joy that I see within them and the sense of accomplishment, but also I know the trickle effect because it has inspired a girl like me who went out and sprained her wrist because she watched an Olympian, right? To be and do more. So I'm sure there's some psychology behind it, and that's where we view things through different lenses. Yeah. At the same time, maybe that's a bit of my edge or my drive or my passion for being and doing more, right? Mm-hmm. So nature, nurture, who knows?
Fascinating.
Right? Yeah.
And so as a youngster, was it like sport all day, every day? Like elementary, junior high? Was it kind of the driver, or what else had your attention?
Yeah. I mean, I was definitely that girl who, played every sport in school, played all sport, and even out in the playground, because of my brother, and he'd go out with a group of guys and they'd play football or whatever. And can I play? Oh, you're a girl, and I'm like, well, and then someone got injured, and then I'd get in. They're like, oh, okay. Mm-hmm. And my neighbors, I remember he was my champion, Andrew Killick. Hey, Andrew, I haven't talked to you for a while. Shout out if you're listening. They got me a shirt for my birthday. I don't know, grade 3, grade 4, like, those anything boys can do, girls can do better. Anything boys can do, Karen can do better, right? So it was kind of a bit of this chip. So I had a bit of that. So I think I just loved the feeling of being engaged and competing, and maybe it is like trying to be my best. So fast forward into high school, played all sports, and then I got to university, and that's where I'm like, well, what am I gonna do? Because I was kind of a generalist, and I played club volleyball, but I'm 5'5", so I wasn't going anywhere there. And field hockey was one where. Sorry, rewind, backstory. So we lived in Calgary. We moved to Toronto for grades 4 and 5. Just dad's job took us there for a little bit. And I always struggled in school, actually.
All classes?
I expect gym, but I did struggle. I probably had an undiagnosed learning disability. I probably had dyslexia, but there was never a label put on me. I went to a couple of classes here and there. And I had this one teacher in Toronto, Mr. Spavins, and he said to my parents, he's like, get her out of those classes. She will work hard, and she'll also be on the Canadian field hockey team one day. So my parents told me that, and I kind of laughed. But then when I got to university, that rang in my ear, and I'm like, soccer, field hockey. Well, Mr. Spavin said I was, so let's go for field hockey. So I show up with my gym strip, like everyone else has played on an Alberta team or something, and get out there and. I ended up making the team. And then it just happened to be the Junior World Cup year I'm a January birthday. So I was the oldest for that cohort. Mm-hmm. So I ended up making that. And then it just chose me. And then I went on a 10-year career playing for the national team. But yeah, I think those early challenges, I wanted to make sure I had every opportunity and I wanted to succeed. So it just made me work harder. Yeah. So I just did double the work to try and get by in school, I think.
Like double the work, was that a natural move versus like roll over and just not do it? Like is that work ethic and that drive just in you? Is that was your only year?
I think so. It's a really good question, actually. Maybe it was fear-based. When I think about it, maybe it was, I got 3 out of 100 on a spelling test. And it was for the spelling bee, so they're harder words. This was grade 6.
Don't you love how he's like... crystal clear, you like.
And the teacher shamed me of how hard, like it was the most humiliating, embarrassing thing. And I got to go on the show, Ed Whalen, like the spelling bee or something like that. Yeah, so I got to go on to be the cheerer because I don't know if they felt bad for me. But it was, I don't want to feel that way, right? And so it's like, I'm going to do what I can to work hard, to try and figure this out. But once again, now that I have a daughter who does have a diagnosed learning disability, creating the environment for her, this is just how your brain works. There's nothing wrong with you. This is how we get what's in you out. So kind of protecting that esteem. But maybe I always had that. Maybe I always had that fear of embarrassment or that abandonment, which let's go back to the day I was born, right? So it's like, you'll be rejected if you're not. Anyway, we're getting too deep into,
But this is I find it all fascinating. So wherever you want to go is great.
Yeah, sure.
Do you, when you came out of high school and school wasn't your jam, was like university did you know that was you had to go, or like how'd that happen?
Yeah. So, and once again, working hard and like I wanted to go to university, and that was probably my family values. It's like, yeah. So I think that was the next step. And all my friends, were going to university, and where were they going to go? And so I think I worked hard just to get in. And yeah, so got into U of C and wasn't quite sure. I did phys ed, or kinesiology was kind of the background. And the first couple of years, once again, rude awakening, because I didn't know how I needed to learn. And then the last 2 years kind of got my stride after figuring it out, like went on academic probation. My husband actually, he played for Dinos as well. We met each other in university and then re-met later on, but I think we're both on academic probation. It might have been where we met. Anyway, but once again, you get those kind of things, those situations in life, and it's what do you do with it? Yeah. Do you kind of turtle, or do you say, okay, what's the solution? So is it happening to me, or is it happening for me? Yeah. Right. And I always see things happening for me. And so what did I learn? And so I had to figure out a different way. And then that led into, after I was done, I didn't want to be a teacher and with kinesiology. Yeah. And then that's where sports psychology came in, where it was so impactful for me in my career and my life. And I'm like, well, what about this as a career? And then did my master's in sports psychology. Then I wanted more because I wanted to understand more about the psychology of the human, where performance psych is a little bit more intervention based. So I did a master's in applied psychology, and then the PhD. I wanted to do organizational psychology, and I wanted to do a little bit more clinical. And so now today, like the Olympics allows me to use every single degree I've earned, because you're faced with all those situations. So once again, this meandering path and the different work experiences I've had all served a purpose. Yeah. Yeah. So I think back to, I don't even know what our question was, but I think it is. It's. Yeah, there's this bigger plan than what we know sometimes, right?
Well, when you're in it, you can't see it.
Can't see it. Yeah, you can't see it.
And then all of a sudden, whatever age, 40s, 50s, whatever the third, all of a sudden it just clicks. You're like, oh.
Yeah, this is why. Yeah. This is why. And I'd suggest, if we are being perfectly authentic and honest here, I'm probably in one of those phases now where, I've been 25 years doing a bunch of different things. I've worked in sport. I took a stint, worked in Deloitte. I worked in a clinic. I'm kind of a solopreneur. Now I'm kind of launching this speaking business while also doing the work in the field, which I love. And it's like, what's next? Like, where do I really focus my time and attention versus I've been doing these things, working with some incredible teams, doing a little bit more organizational consulting, and there's almost too many options. And so where do I focus my time, which can almost make you feel lost and stuck a little bit, right?
It's so interesting because it's from the outside. Someone might think like, oh, it's just all kind of clicking and working. Yeah. But then you might have thought that for a short amount of time, and then you have to like, okay, what's next? Like, what's the next forward momentum piece here?
Yeah.
Do you think it'll just click? Do you think something organically is going to click at the right time? Like, do you believe in that, or do you believe in you double down on these 4 different spots and just something's going to present itself?
Yeah. I think you got to go back to not what I need to do or how do I get to the next phase, but what do I want? And so I think you got to do a bit of reflecting on some soul searching, and sometimes that is not clear. It can be a dark place, exactly. And so I almost, like midlife crisis, I call it midlife evolutioning, right? And there's this an evolution of self, and what have I learned and who I am today. But what I see with my clients and what I'm experiencing with myself is we can get stuck in these patterns. It's like, well, let's do another Olympic Games. This will be the 7th, and of course it's such a great experience, and I really like these clients, and really at the end of the day for me, it's like how do I have impact? How do I help individuals, teams, companies rise to the occasion? Like I love that. It's just, what's the medium? Where do I do it? And what also serves my lifestyle and my 12-year-old little girl, and all the different things that I want in that piece. So it's just, what is the balance of all that? So I think things change, priorities change, and then it's just what's going to fit with it all. It's a big puzzle, isn't it?
You just snuck a word in there, balance. Do you think balance is actually possible when you're trying to create something like special or create impact? Like, do you think there is actually balance, or do you think Or is the only way to get to these high level accomplishments, whatever it is, pro athlete, high level functioning human, good parent, like is balance actually in the equation, or is it always imbalance that gets you there?
I think it's how we, once again, is it's all semantics and how we think of balance, right? And so when I'm working with some people, and in addition to myself, sometimes we'll talk about horizontal balance where I have my family life, I have my work or my school, I have my sport. And then sometimes we talk about vertical balance where I have to double down right now. It is the Olympic year, and only thing I'm focusing on is my sport or as a pro athlete season or whatever it may be. So I think we can shift. There's also a model, because there was a lot of literature on the work-life balance side. And someone came out with a model called personal resource allocation. We have preferred tasks and we have required tasks. Both require energy from us. And so even if I go a night with the girls, depending on how that night goes, that could drain energy from me or it could build energy up. So it's all looking in it and as part of an energy management system. And that's where when I'm working with clients too, it's like, a lot of your time, or it's not about time, it's also about how the energy and what we're doing with it as well, right? So to achieve a high level and be the best of the best, absolutely, it's a focused attention. Does it mean you can't have these other things? I don't think so. And I'd actually suggest, and what I've seen with my clients is when all eggs are in that basket, it creates a lot of pressure. Where when you're diversified, even if small, and even if you have a grounding with the family, or if you're doing a volunteer project or working on some other thing, it diversifies your identity, which allows you then to just fully lock in when you're there. Yeah.
So cool. Can you go back to the field hockey stuff?
Yeah.
You went on a run for 10 years. So what that actually, and the other question I was thinking about when you said that was like, how did you manage school and then playing for 10 years and like doing both? Is it just like, you just wired that way to?
Great question. And it actually, so started later, like, and in nowadays that probably wouldn't be possible. But at that time, I was able to, and once again, having the foundation of being an athlete and being a multi-sport, I think it developed a lot of skills. Like now I see with my daughter, they want you to focus in early on. It's like, no, the science suggests like the multiple development. So that helps. Went through university, and I think with the field hockey, once again, as that little girl, it's like, oh, this could be my conduit. And so started training, junior national team. And then I went through field hockey. They qualified for the Olympics in 1992. I think it was. I blew my knee right around that same time, and so was rehabbing. And then I also freestyle skied a little bit.
And I blew bumps or like
moguls. Yeah. And then I blew I blew the knee freestyle skiing first. And then I wanted to play in the Junior World Cup. So the surgeon said, well, why don't you just play with the brace? I'm like, okay, I'll play with the brace. I can play. Yay. Anyway, so then play in the Junior World Cup qualifier. And then the Junior World Cup was on. And then I was at a camp, twisted on the dry turf, toward the other one. So I went back to the surgeon. I'm like, oh, I'm going to miss the Junior World Cup. He's like, well, why don't you play with two braces? I'm like, okay, I can play with two braces. So I played with two braces. I don't know. It was ridiculous. They called me RoboCop. And
that's what the picture
totally. But it's like, I was so like, I was going to make this happen. And I made it happen. And in hindsight, what should I have just gotten it done? Because then that meant that then I'm out for these other opportunities, right? So anyway, ended up doing that, continuing, and went on this 10-year run where I played in Amsterdam. I lived over there for a little bit, and it was a great journey. Went to 2 Olympic qualifiers, and we never qualified. One team away, one goal away. And I can tell you exactly the scenario right now.
Wow.
So leaving that unmet dream of, you've been on the national team, but no one cares. Oh, are you an Olympian? Have you been an Olympian, right? Doesn't matter if I played for my country, over 100 caps. And then I retired in 2001, and I went to the 2002 Olympics as a sports psychologist. So it's like, oh, my journey wasn't meant as an athlete. It was meant as to do it. And so I think this was my sixth. Paris was my sixth games,
Wow.
and Italy coming up. So I mean, it's just kind of been a bit of a journey that way. The school side of it, as a carded athlete, you also get a tuition voucher. So it kind of paid for itself. And as an athlete too, once again, I think if all eggs are in that basket, it creates that pressure. So I diversified with having another goal or having another thing. And sometimes it got a little tricky, but I was able to make it work. And once again, having some really good coaches and mentors. And I'm in performance psychology, in psychology. So they understand a little bit. So I think it just gave me those bounds that was required. Okay, well, I have to get this done because I've got to go train or whatever that may be, right? So
you can talk about it now so like eloquently.
Yeah.
Did you know back then how you were operating? Like, did you know that you couldn't have all your eggs in the sport basket? You needed it?
No, not at all. I think for me, once again, probably driven from getting 3 out of 100 on my spelling test. It's like, well, and I think also I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And when you're coming from that place of you're not good enough, you always need more. Well, I need another degree. Well, 1 degree is not enough. I need 2 degrees. Well, I better go get the PhD because I have to prove my worth. So therapy's so good. But I did not get a lot of it through that time. But it's like this drive, which is a good thing. But at the same time, and I think I was chasing for what I wanted to do in my career, and I just felt I wanted more education. And the more, it's like you get your master's and you think you know everything. You get your PhD, you realize you know nothing. So I think it's just I've always had a thirst for learning. I've had a curiosity, and there is this self-evolution, like how can I be the best version of me? So not only am I trying to do that in my clients, I'm right in it with them. And one thing just that clicked in me is one of the things I realized, I did some brand work and it's like, what's your brand promise? What do you do? And we came up with, I help my clients cultivate the freedom to perform so they can bring them full self to what they do without restriction or constraint. And how many times have you or I been stuck in the fear cage, right? Like it's we get imprisoned and we're not able to bring out our best because of what we're scared of losing versus how we want to show up, right? Which my very first international match, I finally got to wear the maple leaf. I had the number on my, I get goosebumps. I'm like, I'm on the bus. I'm like, oh, it's my first time representing Canada, a nothing match in Amsterdam, or just in a hockey park just outside Amsterdam. And I get off the bus and there's a Heineken tent and there's music going. I'm like, whoa. And then the fear kicks in, right? And the heart starts to go, the mind, are you sure you're ready? Like, are you good enough? And I was on the bench, and when I got subbed in, it was like chicken with my head cut off. I'm diving at girls. I'm like, I can't see the ball because I'm so like in this panicked reaction. 4 minutes, first opportunity to represent my country, and I get yanked off. Because I trained my craft, I trained my body, but I had not trained my mind. And so never again was I going to let my mind be a thief of my big moment. And so, 4 degrees later, 25 years in this field, that's what I do. I help others, bring their best when it counts the most. So it's part of my journey, but I get in this fear cage. And right now, even my own showing up authentically, like that freedom to perform or that freedom to just be, right? And I think we're so yearning that in our society these days, given all that's going on. So yeah, it's been fun doing the dance and not so fun being right in the thick of it sometimes as well, right?
When the team didn't qualify for the Olympics those 2 times, and then you get there as a sports psych, retired, did that hang over you? Like
100%.
Like that was like
absolutely
to your point, right? Like national athlete, which is obviously insane.
Yeah.
Like that high performing, 0.0 or whatever the thing is. Sure, it's not Olympian. To the average person, it's like, oh, it's still bad.
Sure.
But it's like when it doesn't happen, is there do you have to refocus and kind of pivot, or like what'd you do when you know it wasn't going to be reality?
Yeah, and the challenge is that awareness piece, right? So I wasn't aware of. I'm like, oh well, I'm going. I know this. I've been to multi-sport games, and it hit me. I don't want to be here in this role. I want to be the Olympian. And I was just out of sport. I'm probably just a bit older than the athletes. So it was, and that was my lesson learned games. So like if we were getting a scorecard, I don't think it was a fail, but it wasn't, I wasn't hitting it out of the park. And at that time, I was forcing things like, here's your worksheet, and here I'm going to be the best sports because I had versus no, like it's like this is what needs to happen, and that's number one, being young and learning that. But I think also I hadn't done the work to grieve that lost dream, to let go of that. And so once again, a good friend of mine says, if it happens to you, it's for you. Right. So it's almost the whole idea of, okay. And it made me go into needing to work through all this. And I'd say my first Olympics, 96, we went to South Africa for, probably about 4 months. So got to live right during that apartheid era. It was so cool. It's experience, but we didn't qualify. Like we were a team away. And after that, definitely went into a depression. Definitely went into my whole identity was foreclosed on being this Olympian because I'd had this dream and now is going to be good enough. Right. And another mentor, Cal Botterill, he's a big sports psych. I don't know if you heard him through Jason Botterill and Jennifer Botterill's dad. Yeah. Okay. So he's a mentor and he'd always kind of said, like, if you're never if you're not enough without a gold medal, you're never going to be one with it. Or if you're not enough without being an Olympian, you're never going to be enough with it. And so I think it's that whole idea. I was totally attached, and then that's where that's what I learned through that experience is, okay, I got to diversify. I got to go get a degree or a couple of them. I got to get on my path here, and then I love to play because I had these one was a break from each other kind of thing, right? So yeah, I think learning those lessons, and then when I retired, I was going into my PhD, but I was more once again I had more understanding of who I was as a human. Yep. This is just something I do. It's not who I am. And so, sure, it still hurt. But then going to the Olympics, it was like, I don't. And then I finally let go of it. I could maybe still go and golf. I don't know. Maybe I could still. Yeah.
When you're dealing with your clients right now, are you? I'll use the word dangerous because you have all these lived experiences. So you literally can put yourself in their shoes and you can feel what they're feeling. Even knowing all that and being able to help them and mentor them and coach them, and they don't take it, or they're not in a place to take it. Could you have taken it back then? If somebody said,
"Oh no, I was an asshole to the sports psych."
Yeah.
I don't know. I shouldn't say that. Well, I think I was just a little bit standoffish at times. And once again, that's what I love doing, the dance. And when you're good at something, you don't know you're good at it. It just happens naturally. And so I think, and maybe that's coming, now that I'm talking about this, coming from this world and this upbringing where there wasn't a mirror for me, right? So not really always feeling seen. I think that's one of my superpowers, to help the human beside me or in front of me to feel seen, understood, and just being curious. It's like, this is what's coming up for me. Does that track for you? Yeah. And when you can get them from where they're at. And I think that was my failure, lesson learned in the 2002 Olympics is I would project my experience. Oh, well, you're probably, no, Karen. Where now, I'm just shining the mirror. I'm walking beside them. I'm available to them. They're not alone in their struggle, which is probably something that would have been helpful to me as I went through. Yeah.
It's so, the sport and the psychology piece.
Yeah.
I find it's so fascinating.
Yeah.
Especially talking to any athlete, whether it's Olympians, whoever it is, just listening to what makes them think is just, it's fascinating.
Yeah. And it really is. It's, we've got the different buckets. We've got the technical aspect and tactical of sport. We've got the physical aspect, and we've got the mental. And, when you ask them, it's not they're all important, but what's the differentiator when the pressure is on? Yeah. And it's that whole idea. It's have you ever experienced when in those moments that matter, those moments you care so deeply about, it's almost as if your body works against you, when you need to rise to the occasion is when you're most nervous. And we've seen it over and over again where people who've done something that they do routinely and they miss. And so that's the whole idea, is everyone has experienced that and felt that. And all it means is that we care. We care about bringing our best when it counts the most. We care about what other people thinks. Like back in the day, we'd get shunned from the tribe, we would die. So that sense of belonging is important. We care about avoiding pain, right? And failing is painful.
Yep.
So it all makes sense. And so then it's giving them a pathway or giving them resources and tools to say, okay, I'm reacting this way, and here's how I can regulate that and still show up. So it's not an either or, it's an and. I feel fear and I still perform anyway, right? So helping people have awareness of that and skill them up. I think that's where that intersect is. And when people have their armor on, you just name it. You're like, yeah, you know what? Like, and you go in baby steps. You meet them where they're at.
As far as like the end result, does someone that are the people that can manage those things, like the fear and the performance, are those people that whether they have good people beside them that can help, that coach them and like give them the tools? Is it that, or is it they just have something in them that allows them to figure that out? Like, what is it that separates people from performing when it's time to perform, or the ones that fail?
Yeah. And I almost call it, it's almost those individuals. What I have seen is they have the readiness to withstand the pressure. So they're not just going into that scenario like, oh, let's see how it goes. They've done the work, right? So it's almost like we're going into a snowstorm. And if I go in with my t-shirt on, not going to be, but if I put on my toque and my mitts and my hat, then I'm ready to endure those elements. And so that's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to equip them with the tools, the skills, the insight, the awareness, so that when they meet that challenge, they're good to go, kind of thing. And I've developed a bit of it. You know, I've observed this, like what separates the best from the rest, right? So what are those elements, and then how do you package it up? But I actually called it the care practice. Just going off that whole idea that we care. So I find. So back to your question, do they just have it or they don't? It's all trainable. It's all trainable, 100%. I've seen it over and over again. Do people have different temperaments that allow them to be better in environments? Sure, absolutely. There is a personality component to it as well. But care is basically clear. They know who they are at their best, and they know what they're hungry for. Right? So they have that awareness. So, you know, it's like we don't have certainty. Like pressure comes when we really, really want to produce a certain result. There's no certainty of that outcome, but I do know the behaviors I need to reproduce to bring my best. And so if I focus on those behaviors and that mindset, I can execute. Aware. What are the fears and worries that hold me back? How do I react to pressure and stress? So number one, you're aware of it so you don't get hooked into it. You just kind of let it go like clouds going by the sky, and then you give them some regulation tools for those. Ready? I almost think of it like your mental fitness golf bag, right? Like I'm not going around the course with just my putter, not going to be effective. So you need your calm club, you need your confidence club, you need your focus club, you need your whatever it may be. So they're equipped with all those tools depending on what comes, and then execute. It's all about immersing yourself in this moment, going with what is versus how you want it to be. I don't know if you ever read the book Deep Survival. You'd love it. Yeah. Deep Survival, who lives, who dies, and why. And basically, how do we transcend our circumstance? Well, we adapt to it. We know what the current context is and what's required to perform in that context, right? So in each of these buckets, I've got but it gives them a practice. Whether, you know, I had an Olympian this past games where in the Olympian in the games prior was traumatizing, did not go well, underperformed. So you imagine the trauma, even though like when we talk about trauma and big scale, but for these individuals in a public venue and, you know, you get dropped by sponsors and all those kind of things, now go perform at the next games. So doing some work to unpack some of these things, but also giving a practice or process that he could follow. And he brought his best. And we got through that. And it's like, I get goosebumps. It's like, there's no greater feeling to help someone work through the dynamics, because the pressure is on, right?
The goosebumps, you've said it twice now for like different stories. Do you think like, if you would have made the Olympics as an athlete, it's hard to say like what you would have felt, but like you get goosebumps now, you're like right beside, you're like, you are at the Olympics, you're part of the team, like you're still all the thing, but it's just a different version of what you thought it was. It'd be interesting to what it would have felt like under the pressure. If it would have been all fear consuming and no goosebumps.
Yeah.
Versus
Yeah.
what you experience now.
And back then, that's a I mean, revisionist history, right? But once again, did I have the skill set? And I would say throughout my career, I definitely was way better. Like some of my teammates were like, Karen, what are you studying? Like, because I'm so intense. I'm so intense. Like, it's like I'd be like, nice try. Like, I'm trying to like give encouragement, but I'm just so hungry for us to like do well. And I mean, those who know me well know my heart is in the right place.
Yeah.
But so I learned a lot. And once again, I own that, and I wish I would have known what I know now and maybe been a bit better teammate at times. But it helps me because I do understand a lot of scenarios. I don't project my experience on them. I use it as a tool to just shed some awareness. I think also just the relatability. Yeah. That's feedback I've been given, and my executives that I work with. Like I do some work with some executive teams and just leadership coaching, more on the performance, like how do they bring their best. And I think that's the thing is I get it. I get where they're at, and that could be partly my dad, and and just sitting at the table with all these high leaders, and these humans but it was just kind of, oh yeah, hi, Mr. DeCascade, whatever it may be, like not to name drop, but it's like those kind of people are the people that I just gotta kind of observe and interact, and they're just humans at the end of the day.
After your first games, what was it like? Obviously, games are every 4 years.
Yeah.
Did you know what your like real job was? Like, was it always going to be around the Olympics, or do you have other ideas after that first game, like what your vision was?
Yeah, great question. And I think the challenge with being a mental performance consultant or performance psychologist, is there isn't really, back then, there wasn't necessarily a job to apply for.
Like it was early.
Yeah, it was in early days, and there wasn't necessarily a job. You'd get contracts. Yep. So you kind of had a piecemeal, and really you had to be a solopreneur, an entrepreneur, and I didn't really know much about it. So I think for me, it was a little bit, and then that's when I went, but I was just starting my PhD. I went during my PhD, the first year of my PhD, I think I went to the games. And so, it kind of spread things. And then that's where I think I got into the organizational side where, once again, it's performance, but there was a stability maybe to it, or there was a job to apply for maybe. And so I did a little bit of a stint. I did a stint at one of the big consulting firms, and learned quickly that, no, I'm probably more of a solopreneur.
Like, how quickly?
8 months. Yeah. So I gave up everything. Like I gave up all my sports. I gave up all my teams. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this. I went to New Zealand and did a mountain bike and a surf trip for a month because that's what you do, right? And then I went and worked, and it was the best experience because it really showed me, and once again, I think in the firms, I didn't have the idea. It was more around process where I wanted to work with the people. Yeah. And maybe there is an opportunity. And even now I'm thinking, I'm like, oh, maybe now there's a opportunity. Yeah. I don't know. Have you ever watched Billions?
Yep.
So Wendy Rhodes, people often say, besides that side of it, but saying just someone in-house that, that kind of thing. So I'm like, and that's where there's so many different ways that I don't even know. So how I'm doing where I'm doing the work, that's where it's not the work itself. I think I'm just trying to figure out where do I do it and how do I do it that fits things. So I think it was always kind of going through. I do love sport, but once again, when you work in a corporate environment, the professionalism, and it's just different, right? Yeah. So I worked at a clinic as well for a little bit, did a couple days there, and had my hand in sport. So where I've come today, I'm it's like I have a little bit here, a little bit there. So I'm doing a variety of things, which I think is important to me at some points. Yeah, just keeping it fresh.
It's not traditional.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And that's the weird thing too.
That's right.
Because a lot of people, they can't relate to it. So like, what do you like?
Yeah.
When you gave up sport to go to that corporate gig, was it weird? Like, did you think they just had to experience it? But you're giving up this thing that was such a big part of your life for so long, but you're like, I'm just going to turn it all off and try this?
Yeah, great question. I think I was just fatigued with some of the dynamics and politics in sport. And I think I was looking for something new and something different. And I think also wanted to expand and challenge myself and grow and develop. And And that definitely did. And but I was out of fish out of water, definitely. So now what I do is I love to work in the organizational environment, and I think I have a keen understanding of the operations. Yet I'm coming from an outsider, and they always talk about disruption, or you have that outside vantage point. So I think I like that positioning a little bit better. Yeah, it was definitely weird because it was unfamiliar, absolutely. And this FOMO of, these people are, and that's the thing, you can get a little bit stuck in it. So for me right now, I really look at the experience. I look at the coach. Is this someone that I want to work with? I look at the team. I'm very picky, and I'm only kind of working with, like in my head, it's like, okay, I want to continue to expand and grow, like best of the best, because I want to learn those inches of how do we get them from here to there. So yeah, I work with a couple of those teams and a couple of those coaches, which is really fun.
When you're like working in clinics and doing sport, and you have all these, has it always been like working in different spots? And was it just a natural thing for you? Like you would just see an opportunity and spend some energy there, and just like you were just piecing it all together? Or did you have this vision idea of what your like business life would look like?
No, there's no, I think, now that I think about it, I think it's like, oh, what excites me? What looks interesting? I do have the shiny penny syndrome. Oh, there's a shiny penny let's go. What about that shiny penny? And so like, maybe I need to just see something through at some point. But and just as you were saying that, I'm like, well, how I grew up, I went to a different school every 2 years because we moved or whatever it may be. So there's a lot of change, which I quite liked. It's like, okay, let's do something new, So maybe it was a bit of that. And then I think it's all about different environments, and I do like things that are dynamic and like fun and adventure and exploring and curiosity. I think that's a big part of me. So maybe that's kind of, and I think right now where I'm at, as I've said, midlife evolutioning, hate it. These last 4 months have been brutal.
Why? Like because your mind just running?
Well, I think it's this feeling. No, almost the opposite. I'm almost stuck in mud, and I think the universe almost like it's like feeling a little bit lost, feeling a little bit stuck. Like, okay, what am I doing? And basically what it's allowed me to do, what the gift is just to really reflect on what I want, not what I need to do. Right. So it's like, I'm kind of in that phase and just really listening to that and owning that. So, but there's a lot of uncertainty that can go with that. And in the meanwhile, you have the work that you're doing, but trying to pare down a little bit just to create some space for new openings and new beginnings and just following the breadcrumbs sometimes.
It's like complicated.
Yeah, and absolutely.
But what's fascinating is, as I get to talk to like cool characters like you over and over, there's just no like blueprint for any of this.
No.
And everyone catches, and I catch people at different times, which is always fascinating. And some people they've been locked in for a long time, and but I'm sure there's something else they're working through. Whereas, from the outside, somebody might look at you and be like, oh, she got her shit together and she's like operating at a high level. And but there's always something. Yeah,
absolutely. And I don't know, like I taught a course for the Haskayne School of Business, and it was the High Performance Leader. So it was like the Global Energy Executive MBA program, and so basically it was a bunch of people that have been in the workforce already, so they're seasoned and they just want that next step for their leadership, and it was all energy. And so I had Dick Haskayne, like as presenters. I had Dick Haskayne, the late great Rick George with Suncor, and then Brian MacNeill, Enbridge. So all CEOs, all titans kind of in what they do, and asking, and basically I interviewed them and saying, well, what is high performance leadership? And the one common thing, they all had different things, but the common thing is they all had axioms. They all had guiding principles. They all had, and that's what I find is, I think we'll go on these different paths, but if you know your truth and you know what those, and I wouldn't even call them values, but I think your guiding principles of like having impact, doing what gives you joy. That
Yeah.
was a message that came from my dad. Like, well, you got to love it to sustain it, right? So, and he just loved what he did, right? Being in an environment that's suitable for you as well, because you're not going to fit everywhere, right? So there's a couple of things I think I picked out, and so now it's a matter of maybe getting clarity, and then what's going to fit that kind of thing, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have to be able to say those things out loud? Like when you interviewed those leaders and they had these like core, it's almost like these, it's like their mission statements almost. Like if I was to dumb it down, do you have to be able to say those things out loud, or or can you just feel them? Do you have to get to a point where you have to be able to like articulate them, write them down, or can you just like move with energy and just understand them?
I think it's when you're at a nexus and when you're in whether it's a crisis point or a decision making, I think you have to be really clear on, because no bad decision, like it's just going to take you on a different route or whatever, but what's the decision for you? Is it's or in a crisis situation, what are you using to ground you? What are you using to guide you? And I think that's when like having clarity on those guiding principles, or basically what is your mission statement, or I think those help us where we feel lost and stuck and unable to move. Is I think we just get consumed by it all, right? And we get overwhelmed, and look at our world, right? So it's I find people are getting a little overwhelmed with the uncertainty, and sometimes just revisiting your truth, who you are at your core, what you want and why you want it, can give you a bit of the roadmap to where you need to go next.
How do people get there?
Through there's a few ways, but through reflection, right? So writing about it, journaling about it, listening through these conversations, like having a conversation with someone who can shine the mirror and kind of explore those blind spots. And then I always find through wisdom. Like how many times I go with the dog and I listen to podcasts and it's like, oh, right, okay. And that gets me down somewhere else. So I think it's self-reflection. It's using the conduit of a trusted other, and whether that's a psychologist, a coach, a best friend, and then it's like empowering yourself with knowledge and information that makes you think and see things in different ways.
You talked about like books, podcasts, like learning. Obviously, you got a bunch of letters behind you. So, is that just natural for you to digest information and to like connect the dot to what the takeaway is right away? Because you listen to some, for me, for some context.
Sure.
When I listen to a podcast, I listen to one. This guy Gary Vaynerchuk.
Oh yeah. Gary V.
He's the reason that I have everything right now. My last 16 years have been built on what he's been talking about.
Cool.
So that's the only one I listen to.
Yeah.
So he's always walking the dog.
Yeah, right.
But I hear things, but I never have these like tangible takeaways. You're able to like learn, articulate, and like I have this like blank spot in my brain where I just can't do that.
What do you take away? Like when you're listening to Gary, what is the takeaway for you?
It's almost like it's more of a feeling. It's kind of like not like a kick in the ass, but just like a quick course correction of like, I think I might be doing something, but it's like, I'm not actually maybe doing it to the highest level. And that's what I take away versus like tactics or I can never quote him. I can never, it's more just this like feeling.
Yeah. And that to me is your intuition. That is to me your gut sense of this is right, this is wrong, I need to do this different. So to you, it sounds like, to me, it sounds like he's offering an opportunity for you to reflect on what's right for me, what's the path versus, and that's the thing. Some people you're creative, right? So you're going to feel more, and it's for you to tune in to that language, right? For me, I'm a definite feeler as well. And I've definitely been doubling down on more spiritual work, more the universe and listening and all those kind of things. At the same time, I have my academic brain. I'm like, well, where's the science? And so it messes me up because I'm like, I get caught in these worlds, but I'm like, well, both can be true. Like there can be science and I can also listen to these different things. And I think, that's that you pulled that. I think that's one thing I'm able to do with my clients or when I go into work is I'm able to listen to it all, big picture, and then saying, okay, this is what I think the problem is.
Mm.
And here's what I've heard everyone say, the solution. So I think I can deduce that. I am horrible in details. Like I could never be a lawyer. Like it's like the finicky, get me up
You're
here.
good.
I think that's where I shine and I like it. Like details. Yeah. So I think it is that's interesting. It's I will pull, and also when I'm listening, I have my notes, right? And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, this person said, and then I can go back to just little catchphrases or whatever it may be. Yeah.
I had a guest on last week. Name's Nicole Robertson. She talked about sitting in nature. She kind of lives out in Bragg, like in Redwood, and just like sitting by the river and just like that. So as you're talking about like these reflective moments, I'm like, oh, it's fascinating that to go do that without thinking that it's actually you're doing something, positive or
that's right.
You. That's the interesting piece to me.
It's huge, and there's a lot of science around just being grounded and being outside and those kind of things. Just the neurochemical interaction, whatnot. So yeah, and I am definitely I'm a mountain girl. Love being out on my bike, mountain biking or whatever it may be, or hiking, or I really find being in outdoors grounding for me, especially as a high energy human, right? So yeah, there's something peaceful and grounding about it.
Do you find that when you go through a block of time where you're not outside, does it change? Do you operate differently? Does your energy change? Does your mood change? Do you know what you're missing and you actually like have to plan to go get it?
Yeah, for sure. I think for me, I'm very sensitive to SAD, seasonal affect disorder. So I lived in Vancouver and it was beautiful, but the gray canopy rained from October to February. Like that was a time in my life where I've never experienced depression, where once again, it was such a gift. So, like for my clients, I'm like, oh, this is what you're experiencing. So, and even in the winters here, like I need to get my light. I need to make sure that I'm getting some fresh air. So yeah, I think I do notice that. And even now that the sun's coming out and we're outside a little bit more, I do notice there's an energy shift. So I still got to figure out the winter, because I definitely went into a dip this year. I've got to figure out what that plan is and whether it's just making sure I get out to some sun, go on a vacation or whatever it may be. But for those humans, like our listeners who struggle with that, there's some definite things that you can be doing, getting the sunlight, getting outside regardless, right? But it's something you have to be proactive about.
Sure.
Yeah.
How many Olympics? 6? Are you coming up on 6 for?
No, Paris was 6. Italy will be 7 if it all goes according to plan. But it's all until you get there, it's like accreditation and the whole dance of it all. Like it's so I work with Alpine Canada. Coming off a interesting season, as I said. The boys won and like came first and third at Kitzbühel, which is the Super Bowl of alpine racing.
Is that what it is? Like the Super Bowl?
Yeah,
it's all of it.
Kitzbühel it's known for being the steepest, most difficult, most technically challenging course. So all the guys on the circuit, it's like winning Kitzbühel is kind of like the Masters, golf analogy or whatever it may be. So yeah, they definitely rose to the occasion there. And then it's just helping the team navigate as we build in to this next year. For them, it's like the World Cup circuit, and then you got the Olympics in it. So it's not like a lot of other sports. It's you work a quadrennial and you get to the games and it's all about this this Olympic experience. For these guys, it's part of their season. It's important, absolutely. And once again, I'm not. You should let them speak what it means to them. But yeah. So
sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't like to interrupt.
Yeah.
But for you, like, what was that like? Like to be that close to a group like winning the Super Bowl? Like, is it?
Yeah, and I was with them in Wengen. The World Cup stopped before, and then they were heading off to Kitzbühel right after that. So I'm watching it on TV and experiencing it. And for me, once again, I never it's the team and the coaches and the staff and everyone who's done so much, and these individual athletes who've worked so hard. And it's more around they had the ability to bring their best on that day. And what was my contribution? I don't know. I don't own that. But the fact that they were able to bring their best, that's there's no greater feeling than seeing people rise to the occasion and knowing that maybe you had a part in it. No one knows. I never own anything for it, but yeah, it's a great feeling to be a part of that for sure.
Does it like fill you up to then a little bit, so that when you're kind of moving in your other businesses, not like do you walk a little higher? Do you like Does it give you okay, I'm not taking credit for anything, but
Yeah.
what I'm doing and how the energy that, I'm on to something here.
Yeah, and I think it is interesting. Like when I like whether it's those whether like with the athletes and I've been through a lot of different teams where we've had very successful games and what I hear in the interviews after and the messaging and I'm like, oh yeah, that one, okay, good, you heard that one, so
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I think it is.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just, and even in some of these like it's always in how they're kind of framing things. So once again, there's no. I don't take any ownership. I don't take, but I think what it does is it validates. It's like, okay, so if I'm going to write this book, okay, so maybe what I'm talking about works,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so I think it just like it's partly that validation. And once again, like whether I had any contribution or not, who knows? Because it's so subjective,
Yeah.
right? So as I said, I definitely don't own any of the successes. At the same time, it's like. It really gives me that front row seat to what is required to perform under pressure.
Yeah.
What are some of the process procedures that work to perform under pressure? Those kind of things. So I just get a glimpse into I call it my Olympic learning lab, where this Olympic size, whether it's at the games or out in the field, but it is. I get to observe some of the best, whether it's in organizations or in sport. And so then you get to pull out formulas, tactics, approaches that can then be fed forward to the next person.
Are you like tactical enough that you write it all out? Like, do you write all the lessons out, or you just remember things, or do you feel things? Like, how do you digest that information?
Yeah, and I think it's a great question, and that's where I'm going to write this book. I got this book contract 5 years ago.
I can't wait to talk about the book.
5 years ago. 5 years ago. Okay. So there's this book and I'm putting it out to all you folks because I'm going to write this damn thing eventually.
So, what happened 5 years ago?
Well, no, I basically told the universe, I put something out, I put an outline together. I'm like, oh, I should write this book. So I put this outline together and then ding, I get something in LinkedIn and this fellow from the UK has a small boutique shop. Hey, have you ever thought of writing a book? I'm like, well, funny you should say, here's my outline. Okay. So we get this contract going and then we had the games and then we had COVID and then I'm like, okay. And for me, so back to, do I write it out or is it felt like, to me, it didn't feel baked. It wasn't fully formed.
Right.
And then doing some brand, I never had a website for 23 years. Like I just got a website. And so doing some of that brand work, it's like, oh, this is what I'm doing. And then for, doing a speaker reel, it's like, oh, actually, this is how I'll package that. Because once again, there's so much information. How do you distill it in something you can hear?
Yeah.
So that's where this care practice, and then I can dump in everything in there and depending on what people need. But so I think that's part of it is I do work when I have structure and I need a bit of a formula. At the same time, what I love is doing the dance. So I do a bit of work with NHLPA and I have a couple of those guys. And last week I was doing the dance and it was just, we were going back and forth and then these epiphanies were coming out because we're listening and we're hearing. And so there was no formula to it. It was being present. It was being in the moment with the human in front of you. Which I love equally as much. So that's where I've got it's that balance of when do you pull out all the toolkit, and here you go, and when do you actually, like, it's just about the shared relationship and the shared journey, and you're not alone, I'm here with you, and we're going to get through this kind of thing, right? So, yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Which is why when you emailed me last week, like, do I have to prepare for this or do anything? I'm like, no.
Do I? Yeah.
This book? Have you, it's been lurking. Are you tasking yourself? Are you are you putting a date to this thing? Or are you just is it going to be an organic thing that just when it happens, it's going to happen?
Yeah, it's a really great question. I've had fits and starts with it for sure. And then I'm like, okay, now, and after Paris games, there was a lot of great learning. I was super excited. I wrote a lot of different things. I think the way I want to write it, I don't want a knowledge dump. I don't want to, here's the practice and procedure. I think it's almost a little bit of my story on how I've gone from fear to freedom, from coming out of the womb with the belief you're unwanted to where I am today, interweaving with here's some of the content and the model, and I don't think like there's a few things going on in my life where I think that story's still unfolding a little bit, not quite ready to be fully be told. Martha Beck, I don't know if you ever heard of her, but she's an amazing, she's my soul teacher. But where's
she from?
She's from the States somewhere, but she wrote a book, The Way of Integrity, Finding Your North Star. So she's written a bunch of different things. But the way she storytells in her book and then drips in, or Brene Brown, she storytells and then drips in the content. Mel Robbins, the simplest stuff ever, best-selling book, right? But it's like it's what reaches people. Yeah. So I think I know all the content. Yeah. Like I know the building blocks, but it's kind of like, yeah. So I'm being patient with it. And I've basically just said, okay, I need to pause, and I'm not even looking at it right now, but I keep on talking about it, and I know it's in me, and it'll come out eventually. So I'm just being patient, and I don't know, the universe will show me when that is. Woo
woo. But that thought, it's real, right?
Yeah.
But how do you manage that, like, as a high performing human? I'm not putting words in your mouth here, but like, driven, achieved a bunch of stuff, has a plan, but then you laugh about that like that statement, right?
Yeah.
How does that fit into?
So, what's coming up for me is, okay, in Paris, we're at the games, having a bit of a day. I was out in the field and I had to get back to the village. And so I'm sitting there waiting we have internal transportation system. So I'm waiting for the bus. It's been 45 minutes. Like, what's going on? And then I realize it's the day of the road race, the bike race. So the buses can't get where I am because all the streets are closed. So I'm like, okay, find another way, pivot, right? So I have to get on a tram above. I have to get on one of those bikes, to get to the metro to where I need to get back. Like, it was like this plane train. It was just this whole thing. So I finally get on this metro. And I'm like, I almost go to sit down, and there was this little seat. I'm like, ugh. And I take a little bit of a sigh, and a freaking pigeon hops on in this packed metro. And I'm like, anyway, so I watch this pigeon, and then this transient guy goes to squeeze the pigeon because he's going to save the day. And the pigeon goes flying everywhere. And we saw some humans who were sprinting away, panic and fear. We saw some who were trying to control. And then we saw someone who were just kind of like, oh, isn't that funny? There's a pigeon on the metro. And I tell that story because for me, sometimes I try to squeeze the pigeon and got to control how this is going to turn out. And sometimes you just got to let it unfold. So it's the dance of, yes, you've got to be proactive. And at the same time, you've got to listen to what's there and listen to yourself. So you do got to create some time and space. So that's where I think where I'm really gravitating and learning more about spirituality and a little bit getting more aligned with what is my truth and what do I really want and all those kind of things. But there's so many, there's so much noise and there's so many blocks and barriers just because of our own self-protection, right? So yeah, I've been kind of letting it unfold, which is not my strong suit.
I can tell. That's what I was asking you.
I'm squeezing the pigeon. It's like, I'm going to get this pigeon. Yeah. So
do you think you can think about it that way just because, like, later in life, like, we can't think, I'll speak for myself. There's no way I could think like that. And I think similar, like, I'm not like the spiritual dude, but I'm definitely more of organic and intuition.
Yeah.
But I couldn't have said that to you 20 years ago, 30 years ago.
Yeah. Me neither.
I haven't experienced enough, or I haven't thought about it enough, and I haven't thought about how I operate enough.
Yeah. And hey, listen, I have the privilege of having an existential crisis. You know what I mean? Like, it's like there's no I'm not leaving a war zone. I'm not, fighting trauma. I'm not so I think there's time and space in my life right now. That there is this curiosity and this yearning, and also just given life, there is some room for it. Yeah. So would I have thought of that? No, I would have said, oh, this is woo woo. And once again, we have more of a woke society right now. I think it's coming more and more. Like, when you listen to everyone, you listen to the podcast, you listen to different things. I think we're all searching. Yeah. And I don't know if we're searching for the authenticity, the truth, but just really being grounded, right? And there is the practice, process, procedure. And that's the thing with me is I've got to it's an art form, right? It's a dance between when are you using the intuition and that as a guide, and when are you actually looking at the science. And so it's kind of typically driven, practically informed, and then also just letting the relationship guide it. Right. So there's multiple moving parts where early in my career, here's your worksheet. Like, how do you get focused? Like, here, write this down. I know, so I'm definitely like, that was heck, like 24 years ago. Right. So when you're doing something for that long, you're like, okay, how do I use all of this? Where I'm going to drive my gifts and still be a weekend warrior and go ski a mountain bike and raise my daughter in the way I want and have fun and adventure in my life. And, we're kind of at that age where options.
All of them.
Yeah.
Do you think you could write like 3 books?
Mm-mm.
I feel like there's
no freaking way.
No?
I don't know. Could I? Yeah.
I don't know how many pigeon stories you have.
Yeah. yeah. I have a gazillion pigeon stories.
Over, 24 years.
Yeah.
As you're talking about it, it feels like it's like.
Yeah.
So one book doesn't have all the answers.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it never could have all the answers because by the time the thing was done, you'd probably be thinking about it differently.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's like this weird.
Yeah.
Storytelling.
Yeah.
Psychology.
Yeah.
Tools.
Yeah.
But it's almost like different lives in these stories. Anyways, random.
No, absolutely. And that's a really good way to think about it. And maybe that's one of the blocks too, is I'm trying to make it everything and maybe it doesn't need to be. And once again, I got 3 out of 100 on my spelling test. So I'm probably better articulating and speaking rather than writing. And so maybe, we were just talking about, maybe we get a YouTube channel and we start, the Freedom to Perform channel. And it's just 10-minute little riffs and then it gets built. I don't know.
So you know what? Totally off tangent here. I met this dude, got connected to him, high performing writer, TV producer, and he just moved to Calgary. And so he's looking at me, he's like, you have at the time it was like 154 stories. And so what we did was we took one of my episodes, and then he took it into AI.
Oh.
And wrote a book.
No way.
Just around the stories.
Oh, wow.
So to your point.
Yeah.
If you catch yourself on camera.
Yeah.
And you make these 10-minute, 25-minute storytelling things, whether it's you by yourself or you with somebody else, then you can take that and let the AI kind of,
sure.
As long as you're good at being creative and prompting it.
Sure. Or I get a guy who's good at being creative and prompting the.
And then you can have all your chapters.
Yeah,
which
interesting.
Is really, so as you're...
Interesting.
It was really interesting.
Interesting.
As you're talking, I'm just... Yeah, the book thing. I could see it being a struggle, but the idea of having these micro conversations that just like story after story after story, it just feels
talking's easy for me. You know what I mean? Like, and I don't even know what's going to come out, and then stuff comes out, and then it's like,
oh, that sounded.
Yeah.
And the other person's like, oh, that sounded pretty smart.
Yeah. So yeah, I think, and once again, the medium, and that's the thing is to have these conversations. So once again, how do we understand who we are at our best? It's through like this conversation. Even you just saying that right now, I'm like, oh, and it gives me more self-knowledge in terms of, and that's that awareness piece. Is it's also your own self-knowledge of how do you operate best to create and whatnot, right? Yeah.
Knowing all this, there's all these things going on, and you're trying to figure out, like we're all trying to figure things out.
Yeah.
How do you not get paralyzed by all the options? How do you? And maybe it's how do you not let fear take it all over and then you just do nothing?
Yeah, great question. I think I have at certain points. And I also know the law of impermanence, like everything's going to pass. And so I think, it's leaning into the fear, and it's really looking at, this is the thing. We are emotional human beings, and it's there as information for us. It's telling us what we need and what's important to us. So when I do get hooked into fear sometimes, I'm like, okay, what is this telling me? Like what do I need right now? I need some certainty. I need some clarity. I need okay, well, how am I going to go do that? Well, I'm going to just sit in it, and I'm going to be patient. And what's really important to me is like having a meaningful life, having strong relationships, having impact, right? So I think it's not. I think when, as humans, we get overwhelmed by it when it feels like it's consuming us and we don't have control of it. And so I think that's part of it, is it's really listening, and it's data, not the director. That's Susan David's work of emotional agility. But it's just what's the information and not letting it push me around. And at times it will. I'm a human being, right? So, yeah, it's looking at what's the opportunity in front of you. And for me, a lot of the times something comes up, and whether the universe gave it or whether it was just serendipitous or whatever it was, it's like, oh, does that excite me?
Yeah.
And then I lean into it. Like, so, I was at We Day, or it was like the Kilberger brothers, and they had this big charity where, they developed a lot of schools in Africa or different places. And I was at one of these events, and I bumped into the third in command at Microsoft, and, oh, what do you do? Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, I'm a performance psychologist. Anyway. And then he's like, oh, we have a guy working for us. So Mike Gervais, do you know Mike Gervais from Finding Mastery podcast? Have you ever listened to that one?
I know the name, yeah.
So it's quite a big podcast right now. He's doing great. Anyway, so I'm like, oh, I'd love to get connected if you don't mind. So next day I get this email. It's like, oh, how do you know? Anyway, next thing I know, I'm in LA doing an interview to see if I can work with this company. And basically what they did is he was the sports psych with the Seattle Seahawks. And so him and Pete Carroll, they basically bottled up. They just won the Super Bowl 2015, I think it was. And it was around 2016. So it was close around there. They just bottled up what they did and brought it into corporate North America. And so I was going to come in and help be a facilitator and whatnot. So Pete Carroll is like, well, she better, so she knows what we're about. She better come observe and come for a week. I'm like, yes, she should. So I had this conversation, and then in like a couple of months, I'm standing at the practice field of the Seahawks, and I'm like, what's going on? And then that created an opportunity. And once again, I did it for a little bit and then went into different things. But I think that's it. It's following the breadcrumbs. Sometimes it's like when there's versus like, well, no, I've always done this. And so that's where I think getting stuck in the fear, if you can see it as a threat, I don't know what's going on, what could happen to me, versus an opportunity. What could come of this? What's the possibility for me? So I think that's the thing, is having a few things to ground me as I'm going through that has helped me just to lean into it. Feel the fear and do it anyway, kind of thing, right?
So fascinating. When you've been operating your business for like 24 years and where it is today, did you have an idea of what it might look like when you first kind of got into all this, and like where it is right now? Does it surprise you, or?
No, and this is the thing, is like MacNeill Performance Consulting. Like I guess they can see my air quotes. But you know what? I was never a business person, and I would say, if there's a person out there that wants to manage my business, then please reach out to me. But horrible at that. And then because I think I've always followed what do I love and what do I want to do. Once again, Dad's messaging early on. So what it could be and what I want it to be, and I've kind of went on the decision that I think I'm good as a solopreneur and just kind of following different things versus building this business. So it really is almost like a la carte a little bit versus driving this. And could it be bigger and more? And yes, it could, I think. And so that's where I think right now is it's where do I want to spend my time? Where can I have impact? So that's, I think, the speaking lane. I'm having a lot of fun and sharing these stories, right? And making people think in different ways and giving them a tool to help them navigate all the uncertainty, the anxiety, the pressure that we feel in our today's society. And I have gone in and out of different businesses. Like, do I want to be a solopreneur or do I want to be a collaborator, right? And so I've had a couple of shared experiences with in a couple of things, and then things didn't work out, and then I've gone back out. And so I've just been kind of following it. And right now, I think for lifestyle, the solopreneur. But what I am missing is community. Yeah. I'm missing the collaboration. I'm missing another. So maybe it is just building my team around, and still being able to do the work and having a couple other folks. So So to answer your question in a long form, it's been this windy road, and I've often gone out. No, I need a Deloitte to take care of me and what I do. Nope, I'm going to go back and I'm going to take care of it, and having multiple contracts. And at the end of the day, it all comes down to relationships, as we talked about when I first got in here, right? It's about making those relationships, and then just listening to where you're going to be able to have impact and do meaningful work.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes, and I'll speak for myself, because everything that I've, started my business like almost 6 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's just it's been a very organic.
Mm-hmm.
It's all relationships. It's very slow moving. You know, when it's clicking.
Yeah.
I was on a podcast, and I was in such a groove. I said I feel like I'm in the Matrix right now. It was just
yeah.
where
you can see it all.
It was just
love it.
But then, like, 2 months later, I'm like, where'd that go?
Yeah,
totally. It's a weird.
Yeah.
It's a weird ride when you're kind of doing it by yourself.
Yeah.
And I got Chris. You met Chris. He's around, and Aaron's around too. So I have people around me. But it's a weird ride of like that kind of swing.
That's right.
Seeing the Matrix to being like at home, struggling to like.
Right. What's next, and the uncertainty and the doubt, and absolutely. And that's the thing, I think, as an entrepreneur, solopreneur, entrepreneur, however you want to word it. But it is, I think there is absolutely the ups and downs. And it's almost like when you're building a business, because I was in a startup that's doing very well right now. And it's like you're almost driving in a car, it's blacked out, you're going 100 miles an hour, you're trying to make decisions, you can't see what's next, and so there's the excitement of it, and you get to this level, and then there's the drop in it, and then there's just the ups and downs of it, and it's riding the emotional roller coaster, right? And making sure that the peaks and valleys aren't too deep, right? But it is, and it's not for everyone, I don't think. I think some people need the structure of a workplace, and where some are okay to do the dance. But it's I think, I don't know about you. I mean, once again, doing this for a really long time, I think I used to get a little bit more concerned about, well, what's my net contract versus now I've done it enough. I know I'm going to make this amount at the end of the year. I know it's going to, and each year I make more, and I don't know why, but I just do. And, so I just have a bit of a faith and a trust that if you're having some fun and you're doing meaningful work and you're doing good work, then it likely will work out. And once again, I just want to say, having the privilege of having, you know what I mean? Like, I do have supports around me to be able to take a few risks, you know what I mean? And just build where I am in my career today, and that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Thanks for doing this.
Yeah.
So, like, I think as you're talking, and I was remembering when I first came across you on LinkedIn, I'm like, I wasn't nervous to have you on, but I was like, she's gonna say things that my small brain's not gonna be able to compute. So I'm gonna have to be very focused, because I might get like talked and walked over. so thanks for dumbing it all down for me.
Yeah, no, it was great.
But like, it's cool for me to, because I get in and out of these conversations weekly.
Yeah.
The mind piece is becoming this interest of mine.
Yeah, Happy to do a rip. We can go for a coffee sometime. Like, as you can tell, I love talking about this stuff. So anytime.
Have to record it.
Yes.
Every time.
Well, let's do it.
Every time you talk, we have to record you.
That's right. Okay, that'll be our goal. You can learn, and I can get content, totally, and then Gary B, we got this.
Exactly. I end the show with one question. When I say Calgary, where's your head go?
The first word that popped in my head is roots. And I think my own roots, listen, I've lived in multiple cities, but I always found my way back here, right? So I think it just has that grounding, and just whether it be friends, family, community. I think roots also, to me, I find Calgary, like, it's a vibrant city. It's a city of possibilities, but there's also a groundedness to it, right? So I worked on Calgary Major Sport and Event Committee. I learned more within Tourism Calgary, and I fell more and more in love with the city, just knowing more about it. And so I think the community, the people, the energy, the possibilities, meanwhile, having a strong foundation to work from, right? Like there's a I don't know. There's a solid base in which to grow and expand and inspire new possibilities.
Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, it's great. Thanks for having me.
You're really cool. Thanks for being like super honest too, because you could easily like
do the hey, I'm a
you could have done the dance and just like
yeah.
But I appreciate it, and as you're talking, I'm just like, oh God, like it's just so many cool little moments that are just very. Will be very helpful, I think, and inspiring. So thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.